joining us for the webinar for RightFax 10.6, Feature Pack 2 Revealed. My name is Sean Cochran. Michelle Anderson couldn't be with us today because of some technical difficulties connecting, but you'll have to make do with me. I'm with marketing here with Diem Technologies, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. Joining me is technical engineer Joshua Busher.
Hello.
All right. Okay, first we've just got some quick housekeeping tips. Today's call is being recorded, so all lines have been muted. You can post questions at any time in the questions section on the right in the GoToWebinar control panel. We'll address as many as we can as possible, but if we do by chance run out of time and we're not able to answer your question during this session, have no fear, we'll go ahead and address those offline afterwards. We'll just have one of our account reps get in touch with you and make sure that that's addressed. Okay, and as with all Diem webinars, we'll go ahead and post this recording when we're all finished at youtube.com/allthingsfax within the next 24 hours. Now, before we begin, I'd like to tell you a little bit about us for those of you who are not familiar with Diem Technologies. We were founded in 1990 right here in Richardson, Texas, and we soon became the first value-add resellers chosen by RightFax back in 1993. Since then, we've become trained and certified to scope, quote, source, install, train, and directly support RightFax, making us one of only 9 OpenText Platinum partners and authorized support providers. This allows us priority access to OpenText technical support and development teams as well. Our solution offerings include OpenText RightFax and CloudFax solutions, along with advanced document capture, document management and workflow, secure mail, and managed files transfer. Well, today we'll go ahead and be revealing the updates and new features included in RightFax 10.6 Feature Pack 2 and how they can apply to each of your organization's needs. So without further ado, let me turn things over to Joshua Butcher and we can find out more. Back to you.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean. All right, well, welcome everyone. We're going to be looking at 10.6 Feature Pack 2, basically some of the new feature involved. There's actually a wild amount of things that have been updated. There's a lot of very impressive features, a lot of things that are very visible to users and very visible to admins versus just architectural changes, but there are some of those as well. So we're going to look over, but we're really going to look at 3 kind of overarching kind of umbrellas here. First of all, look at the user experience. So what are some of the changes your users should expect to see that's a little bit different? And then we'll look at some of the security and compliance updates and changes. And then we'll, of course, look over administration, which there are a significant amount of administration changes. So if you're a RightFax admin working with this day-to-day, you're really going to like Feature Pack 2. It's going to be very helpful for you indeed. So let me go ahead and move forward here. So first, let's look at the user experience in our first little category here. There's 3 major areas I want to highlight. I'm going to be looking at a redesigned web client, an annotation improvements or enhancements, and some FaxUtil improvements. So let's go ahead and first look at the web client. So web client is different than web access. So if you've worked with RightFax for a while, there's something called web access or WebUtil. Web client is a newer client that's being created. WebUtil or web access, the other version, only works in Internet Explorer and has some problems where it only does that. So web client, it will work on any browser, work in different flavors and different features here. And you can see there's some major changes. So even in Feature Pack 1, if you see the top slide there or top picture, before you can see graphically some of the changes that are done. And after Feature Pack 2, we see some significant alterations. This is going to be a very useful tool that will work on multiple devices and multiple functions. This is also the 501 compliant tool, so this will work with like disability tools like JAWS and stuff like that. It works with that right away. This newly redesigned web client here has different support in different devices. So here's the ones that are officially supported based on what's been tested. So on mobile devices that are supported, we got the Apple iPhone, BlackBerry, Androids, mobile phones. On tablets that are supported, iPads, Android, and Windows-based, and on desktop browsers, probably the most used for this would be Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, and Safari. So this is working on multi-platforms, multi-devices, and allows you to do multiple things. Now, more importantly, we'll actually look at some of the real cool stuff you can do on tablets that are different than other stuff. But it does have a comprehensive built-in help tool. So right away, if you're not used to using it, there's some help tools here. that'll break down, they've really enhanced that quite a bit, so it'll explain a lot more information on just how to create and how to even use it in the first place. So if you just brought up the portal here and you just looked at it and go, okay, now what do I do? Well, you can click on New Fax and work your way around, but if you want to learn more about it, you click on the Help button and you'll have some more extensive features. All right, let's get to the fun stuff, though. So some of the major changes that's happening at RightFax, although we have a new client and it's a prettier client, it works well, there's features you can do with that client that is pretty advanced now. So one of the options that have changed a lot in Feature Pack 2 is Annotation Enhancements. What an annotation simply means is modifying a fax image. So before we had some little options on fax images where you can click on little boxes, maybe black out text and stuff. But they've added features in here where you can actually sign documents. So if I have say a tablet here, and I open up my tablet, I can actually sign stuff. So I have a little video of embedded. I'm not sure it's going to play well in here. I'm going to try it anyway. See how it's going to work. Hopefully there's no super lag here. But basically this is me on my iPad mini. I've connected the web client. I got my fax here, and then there's an annotation button I can click, and I can actually choose, and I can sign documents. So I click on the little freehand there, and I can sign documents. I'll just use my finger here. Once I'm done with it, I'll save it, in which case I can go ahead and send it. So this is really quite fantastic. So one of the big problems I've always had with faxing, although it's great to have fax tools and fax things, but if I have to sign something, I have to print it out and somehow get it back in the system and fax it again. So we're giving options to sign things digitally, and not just like a digital signature, but actually sign it. So some annotation options are being included in this, which is fantastic. And also, if you look at the bottom there, a little note, when you do make a change, the original image is also still saved. So it doesn't just overwrite the old image and that's it, so you don't know what it looks like before. In our actual database, or in our image directory, I mean, we have the old image as well. So it actually retains both, which is pretty fantastic. Along the same lines of annotations, you can actually insert pictures now. So there's a little picture button you can add in, and you can click on. It'll basically allow you to add your own pictures into it. And that's what I've done here. I just selected a picture into a faxer and save it. And so if you have signatures or other stuff you're trying to work with, you can just add your picture right into it and send it that way as well. So if you have a saved signature or something like that you're trying to add in, you can do. So those are two of the major annotation enhancements that's happened here with RightFax. So let's look at some FaxUtility improvements. And so definitely a lot of changes in the FaxUtility side. One of the great options here is advanced viewing features. So if you look on the left side here, you see view the cover sheet. In RightFax, as you compose a new fax, if you were to go onto the More Options tab here, there was a drop-down list you can choose for faxes or cover sheets. But they all just have generic names. And so your end user may not have any idea what it means to say fcs.pcl. It means nothing to them. You can click the View button, though, and it'll actually give you a preview of which cover sheet you're selecting. So very nice. You can actually see what you're selecting from a list if you do have a list, and you can pick from there. Also, if you look on the right side, there's an option now to view or print a confirmation page. So as I've sent a fax, I can now right-click it and choose Confirmation Page. And it'll bring up a little image. It'll show me what I just sent and what I did. And it gives me a little thumbnail of the actual picture of the fax itself. See the process up here? Additional metadata is also captured. So that's just viewing options. So in FaxUtil, you can now add in a couple additional columns. You can kind of look, actually I'll start with the history part at the top here first. More detailed fax history. So with every version of RightFax I've seen come out, every feature pack, and the history of the fax becomes more and more expansive. So now we have even more options are captured in the history because we need to know what's going on. We need to know who's looking at it, what's happening with it. Now we have better details if you OCR it, optical character recognition. If you're doing OCR stuff, it'll have better details of that. The fax history is updated if you initiate a send via email in the viewer. So if you open it and say, well, I'm going to send this out as an email, it'll actually track that. And users can view delegate activities in the fax history, which is pretty important. So who's been looking at it, who's been doing what to it. A couple new columns or optional columns are not there by default, so you have to actually right-click and add a column in. But we have a DNS/DID. It allows you to sort really by DID numbers. This is for inbound numbers only. So you can see what's going in there. It allows you to sort that out. And also a completion time. This is really nice. So if you look in the right picture there, you see a date time. The date time is when it was created in the first place, but not how long it took when it was finished out. So it gives a completion time. You let it know what's in there. I'm looking at this today's date or whatever. You can get an idea of the time frame in there. Like when I ran this, it actually shows just the time, but that's because of the same day it's looking at. It allows you to see how long your fax actually took and what's in the process going in there. Kind of a nice setup. Also, FaxUtil Improvements, we're looking at notification and archiving. So on the archiving here, on the left side, you can right-click a fax now and submit it for archiving. And archiving will trigger off if you're using stuff like the XML generator, or moving into archiving systems such as M-files and features like that. Allow you to archive it as you go versus just waiting for a time of day for it to archive. On the right side here, you can see advanced notification options. So on the notification tab, we now also have an email notification where you can actually get the status of a fax that's in progress or whatever on an email form. And you can send it either just the page or the whole fax, just the cover page or the whole fax. You can do it in TIFF or a PDF format. It'll basically take that same email and do some notifications that way. So those are some of our user experience stuff. Let's look a little bit at some security and compliance updates. We're going to look at the MFP Connector Enhancements. We'll look at some security features for FaxUtil and for Web Client. So fax addressing restriction options. So for HP, Xerox, or Ricoh, if you're working with those, basically they've added in more options. We can have a confirmation number. So in particular for compliance, right, if you don't want to send the wrong fax number to the wrong people, because it can be pretty easy to do. It's just adding additional options for confirmation of the page. Alternatively, of course, you can just go ahead and pull from a phone book, which you won't mistype a number, so that'll be fine as well in there. But there's just advanced features that are starting to add on, so we're seeing more feature options being added to the MFP connectors as well. And the last little bit here on security, just a couple little bits here. We have increased security for FaxUtil. Administrators can disable or hide the remember password function. So if your users are not using Windows authentication to connect to FaxUtil, they'll have an actual password prompt. And there's a checkmark option before where they can have remember passwords. So you can disable or hide that so it doesn't remember their passwords. It doesn't contain that stuff. And for a web client, our RightFax administrators can configure the web client to basically time out when you close the browsers. This makes them just have to log back in. Also, if you just leave it sitting for a while, it'll try to sign you out as well. So there's more security features built onto that. There's a few more security features, but they kind of made more sense to talk about them in the administration section. So we'll talk a little bit more when we get to those pieces. So the last kind of bubbling category, which is not a minor category at all, is administration. This is the migrating to Feature Pack 2 in the first place. What's the process for that? Support for SQL Server 2014, some RightFax Sync module updates, Enterprise Fax Manager enhancements, and some DocTransport enhancements. So migrating to Feature Pack 2. So one of the things I really like about it, and particularly if you do new installs, is you can install fresh. The Feature Pack 2 is basically an ISO download. It's fairly large. But if you're a brand new install, you can just install right away RightFax 10.6 Feature Pack 2. So you don't have to like layer stuff onto it, which is very nice. You can just do a fresh install of 10.6 Feature Pack 2 and then add any service releases or anything that's updated since then. But you don't have to do 6 first and kind of work your way through it. If, however, you're doing like an in-place upgrade, if you look at the bottom bullet there, upgrading RightFax 10.6 from previous versions, you would need to have the requirements for it. It upgrades on top of 10.6 or 10.6 Feature Pack 1. So if you're running a 10.5 client or something like that, or server, you would have to upgrade to 10.6 base first, and then you could install the Feature Pack 2. So it won't just go right over the top. So it will do a fresh install of Feature Pack 2, but if you're doing upgrades, it will only upgrade from actual existing 10.6 versions. In Feature Pack 2, we now have support for SQL Server 2014. And the ISO, if you do a fresh install, it'll do 2014 Express if you choose to. But it does offer that support for now, so we have that available. And also, we have SSL connections for SQL. So this is part of the security features that would be included later. So basically some SSL options in SQL. If you couple this with the encryption module, that basically will encrypt the images in the actual image directory. If you couple it with that, basically you will also have an SSL connection that encrypts the transaction metadata as well, so it's fully encrypted. So if you looked at the encryption module, you'll probably want to get in Feature Pack 2 also, so make sure everything's encrypted all the way through it. We got updates to the RightFax Sync module. This has been asked for some time, actually a long time, so this is a significant change, a significant update. And not even the graphical interface of it. What really has been asked for a long time is the really top 2 bullets here. Users can change Active Directory IDs. So with changed Active Directory IDs can be updated. So if, say somebody got married and they changed their name or something along those lines, RightFax didn't used to do that. It didn't used to go and change their name for them and update the other side. So it's automatically updating. If their IDs change, that's how it would work. So before you would change their ID, it would just make a brand new account for them, and it would cause some issues there. But now it'll actually link to it and update it. It prevents synchronization from creating duplicate user accounts. So that's really important for this so we don't have duplication of effort, duplication of weird little user icons. So when it brings over and creates new users, it'll do that. And we have some easier controls now for disabled users, and I've highlighted here on the right side. When disabled users are detected, do the following. And there's some additional check marks you can have down below there, like always import disabled users who have Exchange mailboxes. And what I really like, you can always move disabled users to this RightFax group. So if you disable somebody in Active Directory, instead of this knocking them off entirely, you can actually just move them into a different group so you can see exactly what's involved with them, which I think is pretty nice. All right, let's look at some Enterprise Fax Manager enhancements. So first of all, this is with the admin in mind, not the user in mind. So we have increased user controls. On the permissions tab of the users, we have a couple new features that are set in here. We got disallow creating and editing of phone books, and disallow modification of delegates. We're seeing more and more people start to use delegate features in RightFax, and it doesn't take much for a user to go mess with their delegate settings and cause problems. And that, so we can kind of track it this way. This way we can disallow it. There's also a new field that's been included for admins under the other tab of description, where you can just type any notes you want. So if there's a particular thing about the user, some information you've had with it, or some history with it, you can track some information in the actual description. Pretty big deal here. The group admin settings and the group settings, before you could have an administrator and you can have like 1 or 2 alternate administrators. Now we have 9. So you can just do comma separators, and now you can have up to 9 alternate administrators in your list. Group administrators, which is great. That basically gives them kind of like full delegate controls automatically. It kind of works that way. But now we have additional features you can add in with this. Extended access and redundancy. One of the nice things on RightFax now, if you have more than one RightFax server in the Enterprise Fax Manager, on the left side you would have your servers that would be in a list and kind of in a row. You have the option now to actually export lists out, so you can actually export them out into like a text document. So if you're working with multiple different computers, you can just import that list and it'll bring all the servers right in, so you don't have to like go add each one. And you can also drag the actual users around, or the servers around and change their order. So if I had server 2, then server 1 below it, I can drag server 1 above 2, and it'll just change it right as Enterprise Fax Manager. Really, really cool, instead of having to close everything and reopen it in the order you want to see them in. A redundancy backup option here, they've added in a second image directory. So if the primary image directory is unavailable, RightFax will basically seamlessly continue it to function. So it'll be able to go to a different one. So if you have an image directory, it just goes down and gives you a backup option. Some enterprise level features are kind of snuck in here as well. We have user level archive options. This is back to the archive settings. If you look on the left side, there is the before, and the right side is the after. So on the left side, under external document settings, you see forward, route, delete. I have by group, disabled actions. Now they have a by user setting, so you can actually specify down to the user versus just entire groups. Also with maintenance cycles. See the maintenance cycle. The maintenance cycle is the 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. process when the server will actually go through backing up stuff or actually go through purging out old information. So you can choose to exclude a particular server from a time period, and you can also use that time to purge out any audit data that's involved. Now when I refer to audit data, so audit is basically you can run some audit reports, and it'll actually show you when the fax was deleted or when it was created or users or modified type stuff. Well, it's actually user settings it'll show. They're now starting to track additional delegate settings in the audit settings as well. So there is an actual fax report that'll do it, and there's a SQL table that's called audit that tracks all that information. All right, kind of the last category I'm going to talk on here is DocTransport Enhancements. There's some fairly significant ones in this. So first of all, let's kind of look at the high-end overview ones. First of all, we got call blocking supports multiple numbers. So with call blocking before, we didn't have this option. So numbers can be blocked by area code, country code, prefixes, and other telephone codes, in addition to specific line numbers. So we had to have additional conditions here on call blocking. On the new feature pack 2, Dialogic, their driver release is a version SDK of 6.7.3, so there's an upgrade to there, which means there's going to be better handling of actual faxes and transmissions and controls. But there is a setting you can actually turn off error correction mode if you like to, or you can actually turn off the setting here. So we have error correction mode control. You can specify if you do turn it off how you want to handle it, how you want to work with stuff. And kind of the last category here on DocTransport, and the last feature we're going to talk about for feature pack 2 is calling party enhancements. Now, I really love this. I'm very excited about this, and that's why I kind of say there's a last bit here. Basically, administrators can customize either the ISDN calling number or the SIP information that's being sent. And if you see there, there's a little on the left side, it says apply SIP character restrictions. So if there's something weird that SIP doesn't support, it won't allow you to put it in. And if you notice there, I put calling party, I put a ~2 at Diem Technologies. Now I can put whatever I want in here, but what I use is a macro. So on the right side there, you can see a ~2 stands for RightFax user ID. So whatever user sends the fax, it'll actually show their name in the actual calling ID, calling party. That's what I've chose. So down below, you can see a little Wireshark capture there. It says from and to. You can see the first fax I sent from administrator, the second one I sent from mobile user. And it's allowing me to track and see who's doing what's controlling in there, and this way able to see this in the calling party. And there's different features you can add into it. So if you don't make any changes to the calling party, you have to go inside it, and it would send off as anonymous. And a lot of systems don't like anonymous. They find that very strange. So it allows you to put some settings basically into this, which is really important without having to dig too deep into the server. So that's the last of our feature pack 2 overviews I'm going to look at. There's quite a bit on here, so I would recommend that you look through this stuff a little bit later on with the side pieces. But at this point, we have RightFax feature pack 2. There is a service release one. It's very common for them to release a service release within a week or two after feature pack, or anything that might have been caught up and put it in there, so you always put that on. Software is free as part of your RightFax support contract. So if you have a RightFax support contract, getting the software doesn't cost anything. If you're looking at doing an upgrade or a migration, you can certainly get the free and go for it, but I would always recommend you get professional service to do it. If you've ever worked with RightFax at all, you know that something tricky can happen. You might as well have somebody helping you do it or an expert working with you at the same time. So we recommend if you are going to do it and change over to new versions or upgrades here, or migrations, that you would give us a call. But if it's just an update you're looking at doing, just trying to upgrade from feature pack 1 to feature pack 2, you should be able to do that. But you still might want to get some assistance just to make sure, or check in with support, make sure everything's going to work the way you're expecting. So if you have additional information, basically we have our RightFax Diem tech support here, or RightFax experts. You can contact our numbers down below, and that's where we're at. So that kind of wraps up the part I'm going to get. I'm going to pass this over to Sean here to see if there's any questions or anything's been submitted into the Q&A area.
Thanks, Josh. All right, well, this is the time for questions. I don't see that we have any thus far throughout the presentation, but now's an opportunity to put them on out there. Just go ahead and type in anything you would like to ask on the control panel to your right, and we'll field them as we can.
So what I would recommend while people are doing that is find the release notes you get in there. Like I said, look over this deck is a little bit later on. And if you have any questions with it, just call in your tech support. We can just ask, or email or call in, and we can address any questions
We do have a question about getting a copy of this information, and we did note previously in the webinar, and we will communicate this again. This will be recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel within the next 24 hours, and that can be found at youtube.com/allthingsfax. We will go ahead and send a little bit of information out there via our blog with a direct link to it as well. So take a peek at the site, visit the blog, and you'll find that posted accordingly as well. But again, you can visit the recording at youtube.com/allthingsfax. Hopefully that answers that question. Does anybody else have a question that they'd like to ask? Anything about integration, availability, anything? Okay, looks like we may have fielded all of our questions. Of course, if there's anything here today that we weren't able to get or you think of something later, please don't hesitate to touch base with us. Give us a call. We're more than glad to help with anything from how to implement it as well as handling any questions you've got. Thank you very much for attending our webinar today. We have enjoyed having you, and hopefully this has been great information that you can use in your enterprise or your organization. Thank you again. Have a great day.